Hi guys, welcome back. We've got a cool little one today. This is an Arken optics scope. They sent this to me. Now, some of you may well have spotted on the last video where I made the saw blade target, the guys from Arken Optics Global, so these are the guys in China directly, messaged me and said, would you like to try one of our scopes out for your long range shooting? So I went, well, I'll have a little think about it. Had a little chat to them, got hold of them via email and all that sort of stuff. It's 5 to 25 times magnification. It's got a 56mm objective lens, so it's quite a big scope. It has a 34mm tube as well. I had a little chat to them. Normally, when people offer you stuff, they will go, right, we want you to do a review of it. We want you to say this about it. We want you to say that about it, this sort of stuff. They haven't asked for any of that. They basically said, pick a scope from the range. We think you'll like them all. Let us know how you get on. So straight away I was a bit like, okay, this is unusual. Normally, especially when brands are giving stuff away for review and all this sort of thing, they will specify that you say certain things, you will reiterate that something's accurate, especially when you see rifles for review. You'll notice that each reviewer has their own way of doing it. They're basically following from a crib sheet all the things they have to do, a bit of corporate shilling. Now at this stage, I'm not aware of any air rifle based channels that have been offered any of these. Curiosity did get the better of me, and I've got to be honest, earlier in the year I was actually looking at this particular model. I went with the Falcon purely because there was very little information about this, but the other thing is that the prices of these in the UK earlier in the year just were ridiculous. They were almost double the price in dollars in pounds, so it just smacked that the importers, whoever, were just taking the mick as per usual in the UK. But just recently the retail prices have basically halved. So this suddenly becomes a scope that's actually right in the mix with a lot of other stuff. It's something that you might well take a punt on, a little bit unknown. So I thought, right, we'll give this one a go. I've picked this particular model, the largest version they do, for a few reasons, which we'll get to when we go and use it at the farm in a bit. But we've got the VPR ret in here, which I hate the term. I'm going to put a picture up. It's a Christmas tree type reticle, most of you will know it as. So we've got a lot of windage markings there on the elevation. Now I prefer the Christmas tree type. It just gives me more defined markings. I don't like aiming off into nothing, but again, personal preference. I like the type of reticle in here. It's very similar to the Optisans and things that have been using for years. So it's just hopefully going to mean that when I start using it, it should all just fall into place. My aim points should still be all the same. I shouldn't have any real thinking to do, swapping from one scope to the other. Now this was interesting. When they put the sunshade on here, someone's obviously thought about it, because it's meant that the box itself that it comes in is smaller. Now, you want to send a pallet of these from China over, the smaller you can make the boxes, the better. So someone's clearly thought about it. I quite liked that when I first saw it. Straight out of the box, giving everything a waggle. We're going to go and test a few more things. Everything felt pretty good. Fast focus eyepiece on the back here, just to adjust your diopter on the back there. Now, it's stiff, but it's smooth. Now, I don't like loose diopter adjustment rings on the back here. Once it's set, you should fit it and forget about it. I don't want them to get knocked, and I don't think that that would. It's stiff enough that it's really gonna, you'd have to grab it to actually move it, which is good. The clicks on here, 1/10 of a milliradian per click, so 10 clicks to a mil dot. Them clicks are really quite stout. You're not going to misclick that, I don't think, even with the glove on at all. We've got an exposed windage on here. I'd probably have preferred maybe a lock-in windage or a capped windage. Once it's set, I tend to then just leave it as is. Elevation, great, perfect. So what we're going to do, we're going to fit this onto the XTI. I'm going to take the Falcon off for the moment. I'm actually going to be building a new rifle up over the winter, so this isn't going to stay on the XTI. We've got another cool project that we're going to do, and then it's going to go on to the new rifle, assuming that I like it and we run it. So this is just going to be a first impressions. We're going to go over it, see what it looks like, see whether or not it tracks nicely. Just going to give it a run out, shall we? I'll see you at the farm. Right, quickly before we go, I just wanted to say something. Obviously it gives you all the spec on the box. Now apparently this has Japanese lenses in it. It's all built in China, but the lenses are apparently Japanese. There's nothing on here. ED glass, great, but it doesn't actually. I was expecting to see like a little Japanese flag, you know, something on there that sort of referenced it. Even in the paperwork and stuff like that, I can't see anything that actually, like I say, I thought if it's a selling point and it's got Japanese glass in it, you might well expect to see something saying Japanese glass. This isn't the same box that they use for all the models because it's printed for that specific one, but I'd sort of think, well, maybe it should say Japanese ED glass on here, something like that, but it doesn't. So will we be able to tell the difference when we're outside? No idea yet. We've only had a little waggle indoors with it, so we'll get it fitted up. We'll see how it performs. It's really grey outside today, so quite low light. Yeah, interesting really. Let's Let's go. Right then, we're here. So it's freezing cold. It's just above freezing. Well wrapped up. Got my thermal gear on. Now, swapped it onto the XTI for the moment. We've got JSB heavies with us. The ones we've used before were a known good pellet. They run through this really well. First impressions of this, of course, it's going to be subjective. The image is bright and it is surprisingly clear. Now, one of the maybe hurdles actually for using this on air rifles is that it has a 25-yard minimum focus distance. Now, 25 yards, very common zeroing distance. I tend to zero this at 25 yards, or certainly at least I might actually use a different aim point, you know, but I'm setting it up around the 25-yard mark. Now, if you've seen it in the videos before, you'll know that this little sort of semi-sheltered area is just under 25 yards. Full magnification, the target that's down the end there now, just the big board, is not clear. Wind it back to 10 magnification and it's absolutely clear enough now to zero this up. So what we're going to do now is just bring it back up onto zero. I've had to give it 20 clicks left. It was a little bit off to the right, which is unusual. It may not be particularly well optically centered. We have got tier 1 mounts on here, and these are the older self-centering type, a bit like a BKL. They are pretty well centered with this barrel on this breech block. So we've had to give it 2 mil dots to the left, which is a little bit more than I was expecting, and we're currently about 6 mil dots down. Now, we have got a huge amount of internal adjustment on here, but of course now you can see them pellet strikes are 6 mil dots low at 25 yards just under. We've got to bring that up. Of course, that's going to use up some of our elevation range that we've got. So what we'll do, we'll give it 6 clicks or 60 clicks, number 6 on the dial, and let's see if we're anywhere near where we ought to be. And then what we will do, we'll move over to the left, and then we're going to go back and forwards and see how well it tracks. See whether it comes back to zero. Right, so just on the main cross there, which is not a particularly comfortable shooting position, but pretty solid. It will do for today as it's so cold. Right, well that's tracked almost exactly where it wants to be. Right, if you see just to the left of that, there's 3 vertical lines. What we're going to do now, we're going to go from 6 back down to the 0. We're going to aim at the top crosshair and it should hit the bottom one if it's tracked true. Nice, right, let's bring it back up again, up to 6. Them clicks actually feel really good. We'll put the glove on in a second and we'll try tracking it again. Both coming in a tiny bit to the left. It probably just wants an additional click to the right, but in terms of elevation tracking, that's pretty good. There's little point in box testing this, as in working it around in a square, because like most people, I never adjust the windage. Once it's set up and it's on its centre line, and I don't think many air rifle shooters do, to be honest. So we're going to go up and down a couple more times. As an idea, going from my 0 here up 60 clicks, that's probably the equivalent of about 75 yards in this setup. So we're basically going from 25 to 75 yards back and forth really quickly. Oh, see where them clicks are really quite harsh. They're really nice tactile clicks, but I went past that and it took me a little while to get that back onto where I wanted it. Some of the scopes with a finer click, that doesn't happen with those, but these certainly feel pretty good in hand, very tactile, and you definitely wouldn't misclick it with a glove on. But you may skim over it if you're racing back and forwards through your elevations. If you were shooting sort of a PRS-based discipline, you're going to be whipping back and forwards through the elevation, where you might be taking a shot at 25 yards, then 100 yards after that. So you're going to be doing it at a fair pace. Okay, so it's gone back and forwards. That actually looks really good. What I'm going to do now is reset this turret to 0. We're going to have a quick look at the target down here so you can see every single shot I've taken. Right then, here we go. So these were the first 2 shots that I took just to make sure that we were on the backboard itself. Gave it 20 clicks to the left, so that was 2 mil dots. It was put us perfectly on the centre line. And then we've gone up 60 clicks, so 6 mil dots to give us a 25-yard 0. And then what we've done here, we've just gone back and forwards between the 0 and 60 clicks, and you can see that, give or take, the average group size, the group size that we're getting today is basically 2 pellets stacked side by side. If if we look at those relative to the lines, they're pretty much perfect, so it's tracking nicely. Okay, hopefully you can see that now. I've reset that to 0, so that's given us a 25-yard 0. Now what I want to do is show you one of the reasons why I've been really taken by these monster scopes. I mean, these are hefty scopes. You certainly wouldn't want to be lugging this around on a lightweight pest control rig or anything like that, but where I'm really getting the bug for the long range target shooting, we're at 25 yard 0 now. Now I don't have any MOA in the rail, there's no angled rail or anything like that. These are standard parallel mounts, so the scope and the barrel are parallel. That there, so number 8, 25 yards. Number 8, that's almost going to be, we haven't checked it, but going from the previous shooting of this and everything else, obviously with these pellets in this barrel, that should be around 100 yard 0. Now of course you've seen me shooting out the back out to 100. It makes life so much easier being able to do that. Now the advantage, or the reason I chose this over any of the other models, is that it has 10 mil dots of adjustment per turn. Most of the other models and a lot of field target scopes actually have 80 clicks, so 8 mil dots of elevation change in a full revolution. So that may not seem that significant. However, if you've got a typical 25 yard 0 in a typical 177 sub 12 air rifle, you are going to basically be dialing at 100 yards, one full revolution on a lot of other scopes. Now that doesn't seem like it's going to be that much of a pain, doesn't seem like it's going to be much of a problem, but I tell you what, I've tried it with a few older field target scopes. Imagine this was now back at 0. It's so easy to get yourself in a muddle. Am I at a 25 yard 0 or am I 0'd at 100 yards? But when I'm back on number 8 or thereabouts, my 0 is still over here, so I know I've got to go back that way. It means it's just less chance for me of misdialing, less things to think about. Now ideally I need to get on here some adjustable mounts for when we start dialing out to even further ranges. Put a bit of MOA in there, a bit of slope so the scope's looking downwards slightly, but because the XTI is quite new, there's not really anything that's that decent available to me at the moment. I've tried various different Picatinny adapters and things like that. At the moment I'm stuck on standard mounts, so going forward I'm probably going to have my own 25 maybe 30 MOA tapered rail in Picatinny made up, so then I've got far more adjustment range should I need it. But the fact that we can go, that's 100 yards, we can go right round, so we've done 10, 11, 12, 13, 12 and a half extra mil dots, so that'll probably take us out to 100 and, well, probably 110, 100 meters easily, just a little bit over, without adjustable mounts, without any MOA on the rail itself. This is a nice bit of kit. I wasn't sure what to expect. I had no idea. Optically, just down here in the dull, it looks very good. The sun's unfortunately not out. It'd be nice to test it out with a bit of sunlight. One thing that I can see is going to be a little bit of an issue. This ocular lens is very close to the back edge here. You're definitely going to need a hat, especially if the sun's out, so make sure you can shield the light coming from behind, or something of a pig's ear, a little eye cup, something like that. If it was a piece of poop, I would tell you. I've not got any affiliation to these guys. We're going to do a lot more testing with this over the winter. We're going to run this as much as I can when the weather allows, and then we'll find out probably early next year which rifle it'll end up on. It's probably not going to stay on the XTI here. I'm going to be building up a multi-shot target rifle for some of these PRS-ish disciplines. So overall, first impressions are really pretty good. The reticle in this actually is quite nice. I'm struggling at the moment to get some nice photos, but you've got an illuminated central cross. It's actually got a target dot in the middle of it, and just the cross portion illuminates, which, to be honest, I would probably prefer if the whole thing illuminated, especially if you're holding over a lot. I mean, sometimes you've seen me before, I'll actually 0 at 66 yards and then still hold over another 5 mil dots. Of course, that means I've got no illuminated reticle for that additional 5 mil dots, which not a problem if you're always dialing, but sometimes you don't always necessarily want to or need to. So I'm gonna grab some yellow targets out and let's have a little play. Right, the sun's just creeping out down the end there now. I've got my little targets, the spinner targets that I made a little while ago. We're just going to see what that image looks like. Now again, we are underneath, we're just inside of the minimum focus distance, so I'm on 10 mag now, and I'll tell you what, you could shoot them all day long like that, that's no problem at all. 20 mag. If any of you are familiar with hunter field target, you know when you're shooting them closer targets and it's a bit blurred, you could easily pick them off at 20 mag. So you definitely wouldn't want to be trying to do your target shooting. If you're range shooting, trying to do bench rest cards or whatever, you know, indoors, you're definitely not going to be able to use it at 20 mag. But backed off to 10, it's absolutely perfect at this sort of range, but obviously it is designed for longer range shooting. So at 10 mag, they're pretty crisp and pretty clear, to be honest. There's no signs of any sort of fringing around the yellow targets. I mean, how am I going to, other than explaining it to you, we can't get a photo that's decent enough to show it or anything like that down on 10 mag. It's quite impressive. Let's see if we can shoot that pellet strike on that third bison's butt. I think I need to just give it one click to the right, but we won't bother doing that for the moment. Try again. I'll tell you what would be nice, if it had one of the little screw-in little levers on here. You can buy an additional clamp-on one, like a bulky one, a bit like the old fishing coasters that I use on the Falcon, but it would be nice if it just had a little simple, or just a little raised ridge, especially where it's cold. That's actually quite hard to grip hold of at the moment. Feels nice and smooth though, mind. Right, so at 20 mag, let's see if we can just pick off one of them little mini spinners. And it is blurry, but it's still easy enough to hit. I think they're what, just over a ½ inch, maybe 15mm them spinners. I mean, it's no real test at this range, but you can still see it's a silver spinner with a silver background, and it's still completely easy enough to pick it out. So yeah, not too bad at all. The eye box on this is a little bit fussy compared to some scopes, so it means that you've got to be very consistent with your head position. If you don't, the image will black out. And to be honest, it's a good thing really. It means that your setup has to be spot on. You have to be consistent in your position. Some scopes you can move your head around a little bit, and yeah, it kind of makes them a little bit easier to use because you don't have to be in such a consistent position, but it does mean that parallax error can creep in. I don't mind a fussy eye box because we've got an adjustable cheek with a decent rollover. It just means the setup has to be on point, and it also means that if you've got a crisp, clear image and you've got no black ring around the outside, you are well centered behind it, so you're not really likely to be able to take a shot when you're not centered. So yeah, it's all going to lead to being more accurate ultimately. Yeah, see at 10 mag, that's actually really quite nice. I say that's a little bit, I mean, it glides lovely, but there's quite a lot of tension on there. It would be nice. Maybe we'll just have to buy one of the little bolt-on jobs, or just chuck a coaster around there, I think. The illumination, so it's got on and off, so you don't have to go all the way back round to 0. So between each of the 6 sort of brightness levels, you've got an off between them. So on number 6, off, 5. On number 6, that's perfect for daytime shooting. I'll tell you what, at 10 mag, that centre dot would be pretty good. Of course, we're inside of the focus distance, but on 10 mag, if you were actually doing some target shooting at 25 yards, that centre dot is pretty fine. That would definitely be usable for paper punching, decent degree of accuracy. Oh god, it's getting freezing cold. That temperature's dropped really quick. The sun's just gone back in. It's only a little above freezing. Nice. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm actually really quite surprised with this. I didn't know what to, I think it's snowing. I didn't quite know what to expect. They were obviously quite confident in it, because I've got no reason to say this is a nice bit. I mean, it is a nice scope actually, but I've got no reason to. I'm not commercially tied into them. I haven't signed anything. I've not done any deals with them or anything like that. But first impressions are really quite good. We're definitely going to carry on using this. I've got a choice of 2 rifles that we're going to use going forward. I've got my FX Streamline STX, which to be honest I don't really like, and I've also still got my old Ultimate Sporter. We're going to use either one of those 2 to build a multi-shot PRS-ish target rig down the line. So in the next few videos we'll look at those. We're definitely going to come back to this. Anything that I use this for, I'll get it on film and we'll just see how it pans out. But I'll tell you what, first impressions are good. Is it really that usable on an air rifle? Well, if you're going to be shooting 25 yards and above and you aren't lugging it around the fields with you, then yeah, to be honest, it's a really nice bit of kit. For long range target shooting, you could do a lot worse than this for sure. So let's get home. It's starting to snow. Right, I'll see you back at home. Right guys, we're back. I am so torn. This is ridiculous. I went back up the farm, had to go and drop a few bits off. The sun was back out again. It's now the evening. Had a little waggle around with this out at the longer ranges, and I'm going to have to leave it on the XTI for the minute. I can't take it off. It's Chinese stuff is not supposed to be this good. Chinese stuff is cheap and cheerful, yet this is neither of those. Optically, this is fantastic. certainly punching well above its price point. I mean, it feels nice, it looks cool, the reticle suits me. I didn't expect that one, to be honest. I was sort of thinking, oh, there's probably going to be bits and pieces that I don't like, you know. But I mean, oh God, I'm very, very surprised. It's fantastic. It's going to suit my long range shooting. I mean, if this focused down to 15 yards, it would be a perfect one for a lot of long range air rifle target shooters. It's neither a field target scope, it doesn't have the magnification for that or the shorter depth of field. It's not an outright bench rest target scope, it doesn't have the magnification for that, or it's not quite fine enough in the reticle. But for the sort of shooting that I'm doing, mostly static long range stuff, the fact that I can just dial straight out to over 100 meters, yeah, I'm really surprised. I didn't see that one coming, to be honest, guys. It feels good, it looks good, it's going now to stay on here for the foreseeable future. I can't take it off. I really enjoyed using it today. Optically it's great, it took no time whatsoever to get used to. I just adjusted the ocular lens and away we went. Everything just felt as it ought to. I felt straight away right at home behind it. I'm going to use it going forward. You're most likely going to see this in the following videos, probably for the rest of the winter on this. Now we're still going to be building up the other rigs. Maybe we end up with another one of these, I really don't know. At this point I am very, very surprised. It's performed really well. I mean, if I've got to be critical of it, and I will be critical, it would be nice to have a slightly extended eyepiece, like the little rubber cup on the back here. If this extended back just a tiny bit, that would be better. Personally, I would prefer a lock-in windage on there, you know, like a push-pull lock-in one or a capped one. If this came in a 15-yard minimum focus with a capped turret, I'd buy another one in an instant. I'm really, really surprised. Wasn't expecting that, to be honest. There's a lot of hype of these on the internet. A lot of people say that they're really good, but of course you never really know until you try one. I've got no affiliation to the brand. Like I say, they have given me this one and I'm really glad they did. It's really cool. I really enjoy it. I think it's going to help me, especially at the longer ranges. I think it's going to work really well. What more do you want to say? I don't know. We're done. I guess we'll see you in the next one, and you'll most likely see the Arken on that. So that'll do it for this one, guys. I'll see you later.